Alek Manoah is still not throwing off a mound in AAA Buffalo, and there is no timeline for his return to game action. It's a pretty scary revelation of what's been going on with him ever since he's gotten sent down. And there's an article calling him out for his lack of preparation going into the season and for his lack of commitment to the team. So we'll break that down on this episode of Jay's Digest, as well as a couple of injury updates. Bo Bichette and Danny Jansen, when are they going to be back? We'll break that down and much more coming up next. What's up, Jays fans? I'm your host, Peter Vryonis, alongside host Nick Gosse. Happy Labor Day to each and every one of you. Enjoy that day off. And the Blue Jays are going to start a 3-game series against the Oakland Athletics today. And if they go ahead and sweep this 3-game set against Oakland, they will be in a playoff spot because Texas and Houston are starting up their 3-game series today. And we're 1.5 games back of both of them. So it's going to be very interesting to see the Jays if they can go ahead and take a stranglehold of that final spot. But Nick, we got an Alek Manoah update here. We got a couple of injury updates to break down for the viewers. It's not great on either front when it comes to the injuries and Alek Manoah, but these games here are going to be season defining for the Toronto Blue Jays.
Yeah, it's a very fun time. The series this weekend against Colorado probably went as good as it could have from a standing standpoint, aside from if the Jays would have swept. But before we get into the video, make sure that subscribe button. We're on the road to 8,000. And let's get into the scary Alek Manoah update. And we had a pretty similar update a couple weeks ago, but this one's a bit different. This one is, John Schneider comes out it seems like every week or two and just gives an update, and they've been pretty stagnant so far. So we have a few things to break down. So this was the initial breakdown and report from Ben Nicholson-Smith saying, still no timeline for Alek Manoah to pitch in AAA games. The right-handed pitcher has yet to throw off a mound as he builds back up from per Jays management. And this was from Keegan Matheson, going a bit more in depth, saying there's still no change when it comes to Alek Manoah and no set date for his return. John Schneider described it as a natural build back up after his time off and still hasn't thrown him in. Now, Peter, before I get into the article that calls him out, calls the Blue Jays management out, what are your thoughts on this initial report? We thought that, a week or whatever, a couple weeks ago when we made the video on his, previous report, that he was going to start throwing very, very soon. That was kind of our understanding, or at least some point soon. Not the case, and I guess who knows what's going on with Alek Manoah.
Yeah, well, the thing is with me is you got to go out there and pitch. I know he's had a rough year. It's probably been really tough on his psyche as well, and I get that. You got to take the time and come back as strong as you can possibly come back. But at the same time, you got to stay sharp, and you're a professional athlete. And if you're staying idle for a month or over a month, then it's just not good for your development. He's only 25 years old. It's not like he's a seasoned veteran that is going to get back as soon as he's ready to go. He's someone that needs his reps. You could tell that there was a bit of fatigue. There was a bit of lack of, I don't know, preparation going into this season for Alek Manoah. He needs those reps. He needs to throw off a mound. He needs to, I'm not saying game action, but go out there and pitch. He's not hurt. He needs to go out there and get those reps in, simulate games, and be ready to come back for next year, because I feel like these are changes that are going to have to take a whole offseason to put into place. And we spoke about this. He was rushed back to the big leagues out of necessity. The Blue Jays needed him there. He couldn't deliver, so they had to send him back down. And now I don't get what the point is. You sent him back down to go ahead and help his development a little more, get him back to what he was beforehand. And now he's not even pitching. It doesn't make sense to me. I don't know what the Blue Jays front office is doing.
Yeah, we don't really know, but there's an article, and this kind of highlights that Manoah's not going to be coming back this season, from what all reports indicate. It's just not going to happen at all. Maybe next season, but this was the headline of the article, saying the Blue Jays story of Alek Manoah's medical test doesn't pass the plausibility test after GM Ross Atkins' 2-week delay in reporting to Buffalo was, quote, just to make sure he was in the best possible physical place. And I'm just going to highlight a couple key points in this article, and Peter kind of mimics a little bit what you say here, and basically, they kind of interviewed Ross Atkins and John Schneider a little bit more, pressed a little bit more. So not satisfied with the response that Atkins gave. A reporter again asked if Manoah's been pitching through injuries. Atkins said no, and the Jays medical staff would have told him if that has been the case. Manoah hasn't missed any time because of injuries since 2021. So that puts to bed any, thoughts that he may have missed time because of injuries. Like you just said, he is not hurt, or at least the Jays are saying that he's not hurt. And then, so Peter, I don't know. It's a bit of a scary thing. They pressed the media, they pressed Ross Atkins, and ultimately he's not hurt. They just don't really have a reasonable explanation. And there's also, fine and deep in that article, they mentioned the fact that Alek Manoah obviously has missed a lot of time, and they asked them about if the MLB allows that to happen, and they basically say we made sure with Major League Baseball that they were okay with it. Atkins said, "I think Manoah's career trajectory has been unique, and this pause after him being an option for the first time seemed to make most sense and make sure we're through that assessment." Now, Peter, when you're having to verify that the MLB what you're doing with your former Cy Young pitcher is allowed because of how strange and scary the situation is, I don't know. We'll know more in the offseason. And I'm sure there's, our front office is pretty competent. I'm sure there's a reason behind it. But regardless, we can say at this point that they mishandled calling him back up so soon. But any final thoughts on that before we move on? It was a very interesting article there, and I suggest you read it. I believe it was on the Star, Toronto Star.
Yeah, well, he's got to come back next year and be ready. It's as simple as that. He's got to take this offseason seriously, and he's got to be committed to this team because he wasn't coming into this season, and you could tell that the fire was there in that Cy Young caliber season that he had in 2022. It was not there this year. He came in unprepared. He came in not ready to work with this Blue Jays team, and he got exposed. Where would this team be if Alek Manoah was the same version that he was the year before? They would be in a much better place. They would be probably contending for first place in the AL East. And I'm not going to place this season solely on him because a lot of players have underperformed, but it just shows that this team was not fully focused going into the year, and that starts at the top with your superstars. He was meant to be your co-ace going into the year, and he hasn't even been close to that. He's now in AAA, and he's not even pitching. So he's got to take this offseason super seriously. He's got to come back ready to work because he cost himself a lot of money this past season. And if he doesn't shape up, Nick, I don't know. He might be there for a lot longer than we hope so.
Yeah, who knows? And who knows how next year is going to shape out. But it definitely makes for an interesting offseason. And hopefully he can get back to his former, at least a shell of himself. But Danny Jansen, we have a couple injury updates. And the big one here is that Danny Jansen spoke out on his injury yesterday. And it's nothing too crazy. We know he fractured his middle finger. And he's going to be out for a while, we would assume. I think someone came out and said that I think Danny Jansen or someone had a similar injury fracture last year or the year before. And it was like 36 days or something like that. And 27 days before they even started swinging it bat again. So Danny Jansen, hopefully, and John Schneider came out and said maybe try to get him back for the postseason or he'll come back when it matters, in John Schneider's words. But Danny Jansen spoke out and he said, "My goal is to recover as fast as I can. For me personally, I hope to make an impact for the playoffs, cheering my butt off for the boys. Tough timing for sure, but do my best, stay in the moment, and stay present." So, Peter, any thoughts on this from Danny Jansen? Obviously, he's a victim of a very unfortunate injury, a freak accident. Obviously, got hit with the foul ball right off his hand. If Buck Martinez was announcing that game, maybe he would have commented about putting his hand behind his back. But a very unfortunate injury. Any thoughts on this one? And it's seeming like the playoffs might be the most likely time if the Jays make it there. And we do have Tyler Heineman as the backup, but he doesn't provide a shell of what Danny Jansen provides, at least from an offensive standpoint.
Yeah, you got to feel for the guy just because he's battled so many injuries. And when he is on that field, he's such a productive player and he's the heart and soul of this team when he is out there, but he just can't stay on the field. And in his last 162 games, he's got nearly 35 home runs. He's someone that injects so much power into this lineup. He just can't stay on the field. And you feel for him. You really do. And he knows how important he is to this team. I think Alejandro Kirk is going to hold down the fort. He's been doing a good job as of late. I'm okay with Tyler Heineman as the backup. I have confidence in him to call games. He's a veteran guy. He runs okay on the bases, switch hitter. Not the worst backup to have for Danny Jansen, but yeah, it doesn't look like he'll be back this year. And it's not an injury that you could rush back from either. A break in your hand, a break in your middle finger makes it really tough to swing the bat, and that's Danny Jansen's calling card. It's that big time power that he has in that thunder stick, and if he's not swinging it with that same ferocity, then he's not ready to come back.
Yeah, and they're not going to rush him back. And This was what he spoke out directly after he got put on the IL. He said, "No stranger to the IL. No stranger to the IL, unfortunately. Seeing the x ray when I came out of the game, definitely sad and disappointing. But at the end of the day, it was a freak accident, something that he can't really control." And there was also a Bo Bichette update. He's starting to run the bases better now, and he's pretty close to 100%. I think he ran the bases about 95%. So his return is probably the closest out of any of the injuries. We also have Matt Chapman, no update on him. But any thoughts on Peter? We need Bo Bichette back. We need him back pretty badly. That being said,
Yeah.
Ernie Clement is doing phenomenal stuff. The Jays are doing phenomenal stuff. And if they go ahead and take care of business against an Oakland Athletics team this weekend, or this week, it feels like the weekend, it would be very, very good. And Rockies are bad. I think the Oakland Athletics are a significant step down.
Yeah, the A's are worse, and you got to go ahead and take care of business. Sweep, and you're in a playoff spot. It's that simple for the Blue Jays. They need Bo Bichette back. Everyone's been holding it down. The Buffalo Jays are starting to step up here, and it's been fun to watch the past couple of games. A lot of runs at Coors Field, but the real down and dirty business starts tonight in Oakland, and got to go out there and get a win.
Yeah, and shout out to Spencer Horwitz. He's also been doing very, very good things. And we talked about him in a video a while ago that he could be a good asset. But that'll wrap up the video. Hopefully, the Jays can take care of business because their last 15 games of the season are going to be pretty rough. So try to make some separation when we can. We'll see you guys tomorrow.